Good evening, everyone. This is Joe Montalvo. I'm working with Writers of the Futures out in Los Angeles right now. We've been doing week interviews all week long. We've been talking to both the artists and the authors. Been really a great group of people to hang out with. I've been quite impressed, not only with their behavior, but with their camaraderie amongst the group. I'm so used to attending things like this, and everybody's really, hateful. Oh, I'm gonna cut this one. I'm gonna cut that one. But I really haven't seen that here, so I've been quite impressed. So I have Andy Dibble with me right now. So Andy, tell them a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
I'm Andy Dibble. My day job is as a healthcare IT consultant. I work for a big healthcare system in Houston, Texas. And I also write stories, mostly with kind of a theological or philosophical bent, science fiction and fantasy. For Right Into the Future, I wrote a story about Bible translation into alien languages.
Well, that sounds interesting. I'm into alien stuff. I have to check it out. So, what made you decide? Well, let me rephrase that. What made you think you could write? Good enough to submit to Writers of the Future? Now, yeah.
Well, so I had a past job at a big healthcare software company, and I was under a non-compete. As part of my employment there, I left. I couldn't continue in that industry for a year, so I'm like, okay, I'll try writing. I wrote a novel in a really weird world that I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that, but I have to figure if that's going to work out. But um, and then I kind of got tired of writing that, and I had this idea for a story about um Bible translation, basically based upon. I had like a Buddhist studies course a long time ago, and I just realized I heard just how weird some parts of the Bible were translated into other human languages, and years later I had this thought about just how much fun it could be translating that same kind of thing into lots of different alien languages. So that idea is kind of what drew me away from my messed up novel and into writing this story, which eventually, after a while, sold to the Writers of the Future. In the meantime, I was writing other stories about I had one about a world in which the government and life insurance companies. I had one about kind of ancient Indian epic and about karma and inspired by a Buddhist epic. I think that short stories for right now, do kind of fit my thinking better than novels. Although I might go back to that.
Actually, on that note, Z Geners are very short attention span, so that's probably a good thing. So you have to, when you think about your audience, you have to think four things. Well, really two things. You've got the Z's down here, and you got the baby boomers up here. Baby boomers love to read, so they're going to have a different view on life than the Z's are. So if you can find a way to bridge those two, which some authors have, you'll make a fortune. Because really and truly, it's a different. And what's one good thing for you is Z Geners tend to think more like the baby boomers because they're two generations down. So what I mean by that is like so if you go down to the next generation down, they don't want to be against the baby boomers because it's their kids, so they're rebelling against them. So then the grandkids come up, and then the great grandkids. Well, the great grandkids are always going to be a lot like the great grandparents. It's a very strange way world works. So you can bridge those two, and everybody in the middle will just follow along. So it's a good way to go. It's hard for me because to me, all the Z Geners are crazy. the millennials are all right, but the Z Geners are crazy. But at least the ones I've met, or I shouldn't say all of them are, but there's quite a few of them are. So, title of the story?
A word that means everything.
Volume 37?
36.
36, okay. How many times did you have to submit?
So I submitted that story the very first time I ever submitted. Although at that time, I mean, it was the first story I ever wrote that I actually wanted to sell. And I didn't know how to write beginning, so it was like 2,200 words of just no plot progressing at the beginning. And
yeah, like I would write.
Well, beginnings are hard. And I mean, I went back to it a year later in preparation for my fourth submission. That was, and I found a way to fix the beginning. That 2,200 words. I mean, I knew where it got interesting. Um, and I kind of did some shuffling and cutting, and I shrunk that 2,200 words down to like 700, and it was still fun enough in that part. And then I added like I think one scene for balance later on, but the rest of it was structurally unchanged, and that's and then I got first place. So beginnings are very important.
Yeah. I know. I got to tell you, I've learned more about authors and artists in this week than I have in the last 15 years. It's been great. I've sat through all the classes with y'all. I've learned quite a lot. Not enough to get me to write anything, mind you, but it gives me how can I say this? It gives me a little different look on authors than I've had in the past. I look at authors sometimes as, oh my God, well, I'm going to be bored out of my mind, unless I've read the book. If I read the book, it's different. I've had the audio book, it might be different. I always remember the audio books because Z-Gens and millennials are very, very antsy. So sometimes you're going to have a hard time getting them to sit down to read a book, but plug it in into your computer or throwing it on your phone or throwing it in your car, they'll do that. It's much easier for them because they can multitask. They can listen to you and do whatever else they're doing at the same time. So remember, that's important because audiobooks are way on the way up right now. And don't ever sell yourself short. A lot of people want to put their stuff on Amazon. That's fine. But, I see authors sometimes $1.99. Well, screw that. Why bother? Give it for free if you're going to do that. Put it on at least $9.99 or better. Don't sell yourself short. It takes a lot of work to be an author and an artist. I tell people all the time. And I'm going to tell you 2 secrets. One, don't ever do anything for free because people don't appreciate it. They look at you differently when it's free, like, oh, he's just no good. That's why he's putting it for free. It's the same thing when you go too cheap. And as a contractor, if I bid a bid too cheap, I'm not getting a job. And, they're going to be like, well, I'm not going to trust him. He's way too cheap. He'll never be able to do this. Even though I could, they're still not going to. So over the years, I've learned I'm always the middle guy. So with y'all, think. I mean, you know your worth is what I'm saying. 9, 10, 20, 30. Don't do like Marshall Summers did, even though he sold 101,000 books. He sold them at $30 a book. He got lucky. He has 500,000 followers. That's why. Loyal followers. So what's going to happen as you develop your books, same thing with illustrators, as they develop their illustrators, the more you get, the more fans you'll get, the more likely to sell more books. Because these days, you don't have to so much worry about if you get on the New York bestseller list. If you hit the right spot on Instagram or Facebook or any of the social medias out there, or if you just happen to be on somebody else's page and it just takes off, once it takes off, it's going. It'll keep going. I put stuff on there and I'm thinking it's never going to go, and all of a sudden I'll come back with it. It's got 14 million plays. And I'm like, what the hell happened here? And I'll be honest with you, I never knew what it's going to be. I did, like Michio Kaku. I did this interview with Michio Kaku. I thought this thing was going to be rocket. I actually watched him, and I got a stepping stone theory, and I watched my audience go click, 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 click. We lost 400,000 listeners in less than a half hour. But he's too big of a name for me to have dropped. I would have made an enemy, and I did not want to do that. And I was truly enjoying the conversation. So I was willing to give up the audience that night. But, and again, remember, write the questions. Always write the questions, send questions in until you get ready. 2-3 years. It might not take you that. Some of y'all are actually quicker than others, but, some are less introvert than others, I should say. So, once you get comfortable, you can drop the questions. But there's a lot of places going to ask you for the questions. They don't want you to send them 20, 25 questions. So I always say write down the answers, because the reason why, if you do too many hoons and ha's and hoons, you're just hurting yourself, because the audience will drop over that, or the host will drop you. Because it's hard to explain to people. It's if you've listened to dead air on a radio and it's only 5 or 6 seconds, it really feels like 10 or 15 minutes. It's just weird the way it works. 1 minute, everybody will drop you. The whole station will drop. Don't be like, I'm out of here. People's attention span is not what they used to be. And so when you're thinking about it, just don't sell yourself cheap, man. You did as a winner. You should always remember you're a winner. There's no reason to put yourself down. You need to get to what you want. So you're planning on one more question. So you're planning on freelance, or going to work for somebody, or just selling in general?
Yeah, for now. I mean, I plan to keep selling stories. I've sold a number of other stories, none at pro rates, a few almost that very nearly sold to pro markets. But yeah, I mean, I'll probably put some on Amazon. I'm someone who likes to do a variety of things. I mean, I like writing nonfiction too. I'm pretty happy with my day job. I mean, I'm not convinced I want to do writing all the time. So I'm fine having not committing to being a big time writer at this point in my life.
Yeah, you never know.
But I want to keep at it.
So one more thing, has the staff here taken good care of you?
Oh yeah. I've been. I mean, as I said last night, I've been impressed with not only how hospitable they've been, but also how adaptable they've been due to COVID. It was. I mean, 2 reschedulings. I mean, they booked the venue last night. I have no idea how much that cost to reshuffle all of that, but yeah, that all was quite impressive.
I'll tell you this much: we're in the 6 figures at this point in this place. Bringing all y'all in and all, they're well into the 6 figures. They spent a lot of their money on this. Well, I shouldn't say their money. They spent a lot of L. Ron Hubbard's money on this. But they believe, he believed, we all believe in y'all. We really want to see y'all do the best. I mean, I wouldn't even come down here. John said, "You're going to come down?" I said, "I don't know." And he said, "Well, I know you do work with young people." I said, "Yeah, well, if that's what you want, I'll come down for that." And he said, "Yeah, come on down." Because I was listening to him explain media to y'all. They were blowing it this afternoon. I was listening to him go, "No, like the first guy was saying about the emails, that's great, but there's better ways to do email. There's places you can do mass email. And I'm gonna tell you a little trick about Facebook. When you get a Facebook account, every day go on the account and look at 15, 16 people and send them invites. Now the next day, if only 5 of them took it, delete the rest, do it again. Because Facebook will knock you off if you do too many a day, but they will not if you do it steady. And you can build an audience in no time at all. Within a year, you can have 100, 200,000 followers on a page. And when you've got that, you can schedule events, you can schedule showings, you can schedule book reviews, things like that. It's just a different way. I was lucky, because I'm a computer programmer and I'm very literate with this kind of stuff. And I got degrees in avionics and stuff, electronics. So it was easy for me. For a lot of people my age, it's not. It's really hard for them to do it. For y'all, it's going to be like a habit after a while. I'm not a big fan of Twitter, but I do use it. I actually broadcast live to video feeds on Twitter, to 2 different video feeds on Twitter. And I like Facebook. I like Instagram, TikTok. My dog is more famous in TikTok than I am. I'm not kidding. I got a little black chihuahua this big. She gave 10,000 hits. I'm getting like 5. I'm like, get out of here, man. I'm taking you off my page. It's her page. Now I took my stuff down. Anyone say anything else before we let you get out?
I mean, it's a big honor to be out here. And I mean, I'm like the kinds of things I'm interested in. I mean, I don't identify as Christian or religious, but I still write about that. I like writing about theology and that kind of thing, and so it's cool to have like an audience and a market for my writing, even though I fit in this kind of strange niche where I'm not like a Christian writer writing for Christians, and I'm not, I certainly don't approve of, I don't know, like a kind of Richard Dawkins crowd, drumming up the atheists. So it's cool to have a place for my kind of idiosyncratic writing.
Yeah, well, that's good. And I'm telling you, more than that, with the thirst for new anything, it's a good place to be. If you can get in between, because there's so much stuff now that's just remade, repeated, redone. And I keep thinking, has imagination died in our country? I'm like, come on, I'm watching 30 years of shows. I've seen 20 remakes of it.
Yeah, I actually think, I sort of think that's intentional in many ways. Like, well, because they want to put up content that already has a following, a franchise that already exists, and they're afraid of failing. And if it already has a following, it's more likely to sell. It's like kind of sad, but
it's like Sci-Fi. So Sci-Fi had Expanse on it. They dropped it. Bezos picked it up and made a hit out of it.
Yeah.
It's season 6 now. So same thing with Netflix. Netflix had Altered Carbon. Altered Carbon was a fabulous sci-fi.
Oh, yes.
It's completely out of the realm, completely different than anything on air. They had it for 2 years. It peaked out at about 18 million followers. It didn't grow anymore. They dropped it. So with Netflix, if you don't keep growing, they get rid of you, because they're all about how many new listeners can a new show bring in. And if it brings in enough, and there's not much on Netflix that's over 3 years old. There's a few things, but there's not much original content. There's other stuff that others that's older content, but their original content is weird. I never could figure out when it dropped out the Carbon. Everybody talked about it, loved it. I was like, well, I don't know.
Man, 2 seasons. When it dropped them?
Yeah, he dropped them into 2 seasons here. Now, ladies and y'all, listen to this. Don't watch either one of these movies with your children. Okay, just don't. They're great sci-fi, but do not let your kids be there when you're watching them. They're, how can I say this? Very risque. We'll leave it at that. On that note, I'm gonna let you get out of here, Andy. I appreciate you stopping by, and we're gonna get to the next interview. So
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, and ladies and gentlemen, I will talk to you in a little bit. So click.